When your staff gets on board with the idea that they have to start saying yes to patients, you're going to see an immediate and a significant increase in the number of new patient referrals that come through your door. Good morning. We're talking about saying yes today. Great topic for referral mastery. Always reminds me of the Tommy Boy scene where his father says, "Why would you want to say no when it feels so good to say yes?" It does feel good to say yes, and patients like to hear you and your staff say yes. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Excuse me while I take a sip of my coffee. Hope you're all enjoying a good morning beverage, whatever it is you enjoy this morning. I'll get everything set up here. Question of the day. It's GIF Thursday. We like to do GIFs on Thursday. I've got mine in the comments down below already. It's just share a GIF with how you feel when you get more referral clients. I can tell you from my clients, when you get more referral patients, I can tell from my clients, I usually get a text, especially when it's a special one. I just got one, what is today, Thursday? Tuesday, one of my clients got his first ever same-day referral. Something we talk about in referral mastery is getting that same-day referral where a patient comes in for their first appointment, and by the end of that day, they have already referred somebody. That's really one of our goals, something we work towards in referral mastery. And one of my clients got one on Tuesday and sent me over text, so I know what his emotion was. I want to know what your emotion would be if you got that same-day referral. Put it in the comments down below. We'll get into, I think, I'm sorry, I seem to be having an issue with my feed. Anyways, we're going to be talking today about those same-day referrals. Not same-day referrals, on being able to say yes to patients. I'm not getting my feed up here, so I guess we'll have to do without. Anyways, you're going to recall as we get talking that I've talked about advertising versus getting referrals. And I speak of advertising as being expensive and as it being risky. But I also mentioned that in order to provide the additional productive capacity that you're going to need in order to get the referrals that you want, you're also going to have to spend some money. You're going to have to add staff, you're going to have to add equipment, and then when it gets to a point that you actually have to add space, I feel very sorry for you because that's when the price really goes up on those types of things. So it always brings up risk in my mind and in my client's mind. And we talked on Monday about choosing a different set of risks, right? It was one of the secrets of high-performance chiropractors is that there's always risk. And you've got to choose which risk you want to take. Sitting there doing nothing is a risk. It's not safety. It's a risk that you'll never get what you want. And the same thing goes here. You got to choose which risk you want here. And which one do you feel is riskier? Advertising or generating inspired referrals through hyperconvenience like we talked about last week? The answer is that it's always still cheaper to attract referrals, even though they do cost money. If you don't have the additional capacity to attract referrals, you're not going to be able to get the advertising patients in your practice very far along in your practice either. And that's one thing I talk about all the time and I've seen happen over and over again is people don't have that productive capacity. They go out and do some sort of an advertising campaign, whether it be a Facebook marketing or Groupon, God forbid, or newspaper or anything, or they're on the radio and they get all these new patients, but they can't serve them anyway because they don't have the productive capacity and their practice doesn't grow, so they just wasted money on advertising. So advertising just looks cheaper. It looks easier, but really ends up being a waste of money if you don't have that productive capacity. And if you add that productive peak time capacity, you will get more referrals than you need naturally, and you won't have to do the advertising. However, if you do add that peak time productive capacity, advertising that you do will actually pay off bigger and it'll pay off faster because you have some place to put those people. So it's always cheaper. It's always better to go after referrals first before you start looking at an advertising campaign. So in order to do that, staff come along. They're born knowing that referral patients are going to be easier when they get around to it. When referral patients come in, they unconsciously give them priority when those patients call in. with a new patient that's not referred, you have to consciously reach for that new patient unless, I guess, again, unless they have been referred. All the receptionist has to do to screen out a walk-in patient or an advertising patient instead of a referral is simply not reach out to them. So it's very easy for them to not make that effort because they know referral patients are easier. They treat them better. And if you've done as many mystery patient phone calls as I have, you would know that. You can hear the difference when they say, how do you know, did you hear about the office? And you say that you were referred. There's a difference in the way they handle you than if you say that you saw some sort of a Groupon, again, God forbid, or something of that nature. So when patients call the office, if you can't say yes to what they ask, then you have a capacity blockage. Then you have less peak time productive capacity than you need in order to inspire referrals. Every time you say no, you're saying no to a whole class of patients. It's not just that one patient you're talking to. It's all the patients like them. I always talk about having, your piece of the pie that you are attractive to. And the more you can open up to more of the pie, the more you're going to get. So when you say no to that person, you're saying no to their entire class of patients that have that exact same question. So you need to be able to say yes to all of their requests. So yes, we take your insurance. Yes, I can get you that appointment time. Yes, you can use that coupon too that you saw. You got to be able to say yes to everything. When a doctor or a staff member tells me that there's no way to always say yes, I see this as a problem. And it's no wonder to me that so many doctors default to an advertising fix when they burn out from prolonged stagnation of trying to work with staff to get them to say yes and to not be able to do it on a regular basis. Advertising, again, looks like a quicker, cheaper way to fix your practice rather than overhauling all these major aspects like cost and convenience. The 6 C's that we're talking about in referral mastery. It looks easier. It looks simple. But the good news here is that if you're willing to put in the effort to fix those referral essence components, other doctors in your town, they're not thinking the way that you're being taught right now. They're trying to fill up their non-peak times with new patients, and that's never going to happen. We've talked about that. So if you're not the one doing that and you're letting them do that, sitting around thinking, how can I fill this time where I'm not busy? Let them think that way. You, on the other hand, are going to take the financial risk of adding more peak time capacity in the form of additional staff, additional space, additional equipment, and additional doctor speed if necessary. And you're going to do it even though you have 2 hours a day, that you have so few patients in the clinic that you're standing around with nothing to do. So you've got to get your staff on board with this concept of saying yes. When the staff gets on board with this idea that they have to say yes to everything, you will see an immediate and a significant increase in the number of new patient referrals coming through your door. So how are you going to do that? Saying yes means more work for them. Saying yes in the staff's mind means we have to accept everything that comes into us, means they're going to have more patients to process, more paperwork at the end of the day, more things to clean up. So how are you going to get them on board with this? Well, you've got to get them on an effective incentive plan. And if you followed me for any period of time, you know that I'm always about the staff being on an incentive plan. When you have motivated staff working towards consumerism, working towards keeping the patient happy, not always the doctor happy, but giving the patients what they want, all you have to do is follow their lead. And when you get into that situation, and I've seen it happen many, many times in some really, really nice practices where the doctor doesn't feel like they're always driving the practice. How would that feel, doctor? Because I know a lot of the doctors who are not in that situation always feel like they're pushing, always feel like they've got to put energy out to get the staff motivated, to get other doctors motivated. When you've got your staff motivated through an incentive program and they're self-motivated and you've just got to follow their lead, that's a really nice place to be. Your staff knows more about what the patients need and want than you do. And I know that's tough to hear sometimes, but they do. They hear it. They hear what makes them happy. They hear what makes them unhappy. Patients won't tell you things. Patients keep things from you because they don't want to disappoint you, but they'll tell your staff. So your staff knows what the patients need and want. So the downside of failing to be able to say yes, failing to rising to your patient's expectation is fewer patients, less productive capacity, and thousands of dollars spent on advertising that's going to be wasted because you can't service those patients anyway. Spending the money on additional productive capacity, opening up space. I don't talk about this very much in the Coffee with Dr. Scott, but I always say there's two things you need to do to grow a practice. One is make a space, and two is fill that space. It's very simple. It's a formula, but too often we spend so much time on trying to fill space that we don't even have. So we do advertising to put people in our practice, but again, we don't have the productive capacity. So new patients go up, office visit numbers either stay the same or go down. That's not a good place to be, and it's more common than you could possibly imagine. In fact, if you look at your stats over the years, and you look at your highest new patient months, and then you go to the next month and look at your office visits, I will almost guarantee you it's stagnant or it's down because you tried to fill a space you didn't have. You didn't have the productive capacity. If you spend the money, which again, for some reason seems risky to hire an additional staff member or to add on some space or to buy more equipment, doctors don't want to do that. They would rather spend money on advertising, again, when they don't have the space. I guess it makes sense at the time you're doing it, but if you've seen as much as I have, you would know that it doesn't make sense at all. Risking the money on additional staff, which opens up capacity, takes some stress off you and allows you to see more patients, is way better risk and way better return on your investment at that point. It's something that we used to focus on our regional masterminds before we were no longer able to travel. I would always help staff get the big picture of consumerism. I still do it during video with a lot of my clients as well. We've got to get that big picture. We've got to get the ability to say yes. A staff member that has to decide between the upside of a bonus is worth the downside of energy consumed or required to deliver that high degree of consumerism. That's what we're looking for, is letting them decide whether they want additional work, which means additional money in their pocket, or they want to shut down their practice. Because if you haven't seen it, staff can shut down a practice pretty quickly. So you're either going to get complaints from your patients or your staff. If your patients are on the bonus, they're going to be working harder, no question. They're probably going to want more money, but give it to them. If they're not motivated by the bonus, you're going to get complaints from your patients. So if staff is not on board with this YES program that we're trying to put them on, it's going to manifest in the number of referrals you get every month. And again, referrals are a key indicator to your practice. One of the biggest things I look at as far as a sustainable practice is whether or not you're getting enough referrals. Different numbers for different practices, but I want to see at least 50% of your new patients coming from referrals. And an average would be, I'd say 12 to 15 per month should be an average number of referrals. If you're not getting those, you need to work on getting your staff to become yes people. All right. Oh, I see a good crew has joined us here this morning. I'm sorry, I got carried away over there. Didn't look down. So good crew. Everybody put a GIF in the comments for me of how excited you get when you get a referral in your practice, or even better if you were to get a same-day referral. Again, somebody who comes into your practice as a new patient today and by the end of the day has referred somebody. That's our goal here with Referral Mastery. Tomorrow we are doing the recap show. So we're going to be going over all the stuff from this week. We're kind of building momentum in every one of the series. I loved the Monday morning high performance chiro secret this week. We did a morning routine on Tuesday, which I really enjoyed. I'm recapping it already when I'm going to recap it tomorrow. Yesterday's perfect case acceptance show was one of my favorites. And then today, as far as becoming a yes person, leading to more hyper convenience, more hyper capacity for your practice, all great topics. So we're recapping that all tomorrow, going through the details on that. And then next week, we got a few changes we're going to make to the show. We've been live every day here for, I believe, 7 weeks. I said I was going to do it through this coronavirus. It seems like people are starting to open up. So we're going to be working on some recovery stuff. And what I mean by that is I've had clients in survival mode as well, not thinking that way, but doing things to keep our patients with us. My son's coming downstairs for school, and he's got fort day today, so he's in his pajamas. Anyways, so we've been, holding tight, trying to get our patients to kind of rally around it. But now it's time to start recovering. It's time to start getting back to normal. So we're going to be working on some of that stuff next week on the show. So be ready for that as well. Everybody who has joined me here, I don't have time to name you all off. I'm running out of time here, but make sure you put a GIF in the comment down below for me. Show some excitement for me, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.